Hi there, welcome back, or welcome for the very first time. You're safe now. This is your time to rest. Let go of your day. Let your breath slow down and your thoughts float gently away. Tonight I'll be reading you a fairy tale, an old story wrapped in moonlight and carried on a quiet breeze just for you. So snuggle in, get cozy, and let the soft rhythm of the story guide you into dreams. Let's begin.
Peredur of Everook, Part 2. So they rode together joyfully towards the place where Arthur was, and when Kai saw them coming, he said, I knew that Gwalchmai needed not to fight the knight, and it is no wonder that he should gain fame more than he can do by his fair words than I by the strength of my arm. And Peredur went with Gwalchmai to his tent, and they took off their armour, and Peredur put on garments like those that Gwalchmai wore. And they went together unto Arthur, and saluted him. Behold, Lord, said Gwalchmai, him whom thou hast sought so long. Welcome unto thee, chieftain, said Arthur. With me thou shalt remain, and had I known thy valour had been such, thou shouldst not have left me as thou didst. Nevertheless, this was predicted of thee by the dwarf and dwarfess, whom Kai ill-treated, and whom thou hast avenged. And hereupon, behold, there came the queen. And her handmaidens, and Peredur saluted them, and they were rejoiced to see him, and made him welcome. And Arthur did him great honour and respect, and they returned towards Caerlleon. And the first night Peredur came to Caerlleon to Arthur's court, and as he walked in the city after his repast, behold, there met him Angharad Lau Iorwerch. By my faith, sister, said Peredur, thou art a beauteous and lovely maiden, and were it pleasing to thee, I could love thee above all women. I pledge my faith, said she, that I do not love thee, nor will I ever do so. I also pledge my faith, said Peredur, that I will never speak a word to any Christian again until thou come to love me above all men. The next day Peredur went forth by the high road along a mountain ridge, and he saw a valley of a circular form, and the confines of which were rocky and wooded, and the flat part of the valley was in meadows, and there were fields betwixt the meadows and the wood, and in the bosom of the wood he saw a large black house of uncouth workmanship, and he dismounted and led his horse toward the wood. And a little way within the wood he saw a rocky ledge, along which the road lay, and upon the ledge was a lion bound by a chain and sleeping. Beneath the lion he saw a deep pit of immense size, full of bones of men and animals. And Peredur drew his sword and struck the lion, so that he fell into the mouth of the pit and hung there by the chain. And with a second blow he struck the chain, and broke it, and the lion fell into the pit. And Peredur led his horse over the rocky ledge until he came into the valley. And in the centre of the valley he saw a fair castle, and went towards it. And in the meadow by the castle he beheld a huge grey man sitting, who was larger than any man he had ever before seen. And two young pages were shooting the hilts of their daggers of the bone of the seahorse. And one of the pages had red hair, the other had auburn. And they went before him to the place where the grey man was. And Peredur saluted him. The grey man said, Disgrace to the beard of my porter. And Peredur understood that the porter was the lion. And the grey man and pages went together into the castle, and Peredur accompanied them. And he found it a fair and noble place, and they proceeded into the hall, and the tables were already laid, and upon them was an abundance of food and liquor, and thereupon he saw an aged woman and a young woman come from the chamber, and they were most stately women that he had ever seen. Then they washed and went to meat, and the grey man sat in the upper head of the table, and the aged woman sat next to him. And Peredur and the maiden were placed together, and the two young pages served them. The maiden gazed sorrowfully upon Peredur, and Peredur asked the maiden wherefore she was so sad. For thee, my soul, for from when I first beheld thee, I have loved thee above all men, and it pains me to know that so gentle a youth as thou should have such a doom as awaits thee tomorrow. Sawest thou the numerous black houses in the bosom of the wood? All these belong to the vassals of the grey man yonder, who is my father, and they are all giants, and tomorrow they will rise up against thee, and will slay thee, and the round valley, as this valley is called. Listen, fair maiden, wilt thou contrive that my horse and arms be in the same lodging with me tonight? Gladly will I cause it to be so, by heaven, if I can, she replied. And when it was time for them to sleep, rather than to carouse, they went to rest. The maiden caused Peredur's horse and arms to be in the same lodging with him, and the next morning Peredur heard a great tumult of men and horses around the castle. And Peredur arose, and armed himself and his horse, and went to the meadow. Then the aged woman and the maiden came to the grey man. Lord, said they, take the word of the youth that he will never disclose what he has seen in this place, and we will be his sureties that he keep it. I will not do so, by my faith, said the grey man. So Peredur fought with the host, and towards the evening he had slain 1/3 of them without receiving any hurt himself. Then said the aged woman, Behold, many of thy host have been slain by the youth. Do thou therefore grant him mercy. I will not grant it by my faith, said he. And the aged woman and fair maiden were upon the battlements of the castle, looking forth. And at that juncture Peredur encountered the yellow-haired youth, and slew him. Lord, said the maiden, grant the young man mercy. That I will not do, by heaven, he replied. Thereupon Peredur attacked the auburn-haired youth, and slew him likewise. It were better thou hadst accorded mercy to the youth before he slain thy 2 sons, for now scarcely wilt thou thyself escape from him. Go, maiden, and beseech the youth to grant mercy unto us, for we yield ourselves into his hands. So the maiden came to the place where Peredur was, and besought mercy for her father, and for all such of his vassals as had escaped alive. Thou shalt have it, on condition that thy father, and all that are under him, go and render homage to Arthur, and tell him that it was his vassal Peredur that did him this service. This we will do willingly, by heaven, and you shall also receive baptism, and I will send to Arthur and beseech him to bestow this valley upon thee, and upon thy heirs after thee forever. And then they went in, and the grey man and tall woman saluted Peredur. And the grey man said unto him, Since I have possessed this valley, I have not seen any Christian depart with his life, save thyself, and we will go do homage to Arthur, and embrace the faith, and be baptized. Then, said Peredur, to heaven I render thanks, that I have not broken my vow to the lady that best I love, which was, that I would not speak one word unto any Christian. That night they tarried there, and the next day in the morning the grey man, with his company, set forth to Arthur's court, and they did homage unto Arthur, and he caused them to be baptized. And the grey man told Arthur that it was Peredur that had vanquished them, and Arthur gave the valley to the grey man and his company to hold of him as Peredur had besought, and with Arthur's permission the grey man went back to the round valley. Peredur rode forward the next day, and he traversed a vast tract of desert in which no dwellings were, and at length he came to a habitation, mean and small, and there he heard there was a serpent that lay upon a gold ring, and suffered none to inhabit the country for 7 miles round. And Peredur came to the place where he heard the serpent was, and angrily and furiously and desperately fought he with the serpent, and at last he ended its life, and took away the ring. and thus he was for a long time without speaking a word to any Christian, and therefrom he lost his colour and his aspect through the extreme longing after the court of Arthur and the society of the lady whom best he loved, and of his companions. Then he proceeded forward to Arthur's court, and on the road there met him Arthur's household, going on a particular errand, with Kai at their head. And Peredur knew them all, but none of the household recognized him. Whence comest thou, chieftain? Said Kai, and this he asked him twice, and 3 times, and Peredur answered him not. And Kai thrust him through the thigh with his lance, lest he should be compelled to speak and break his vow. He went on without stopping. Then said Gwalchmai, I declare to heaven, Kai, that thou hast acted ill in committing an outrage on a youth like this, who cannot speak. And Gwalchmai returned back to Arthur's court. Lady, said he to Gwenhwyvar, seest thou how wicked an outrage Kai has committed upon this youth, who cannot speak? For heaven's sake, and for mine, cause him to have medical care before I come back, and I will repay thee the charge. And before the men returned from their errand, the knight came to the meadow beside Arthur's palace to dare someone to the encounter, and his challenge was accepted, and Peredur fought him, and overthrew him, and for a week he overthrew one knight every day. And one day Arthur and his household were going to church, and they beheld a knight who had raised the signal for combat. Verily, said Arthur, by the valour of men, I will not go hence until I have my horse and my arms to overthrow yonder boar. And went the attendants then to fetch Arthur's horse and arms. And Peredur met the attendants as they were going back, and he took the horse and arms from them, and proceeded to the meadow. And all those who saw him arise and go to do battle with the knight went up on the tops of the houses and the mounds and the high places to behold the combat. And Peredur beckoned with his hand to the knight to commence the fight. The knight thrust at him, but he was not thereby moved from where he stood. And Peredur spurred his horse and ran at him wrathfully, furiously, fiercely, desperately, and with a mighty rage, and gave him a thrust, deadly wounding, severe, furious, adroit, and strong, under his jaw, and raised him out of the saddle, and cast him a long way from him. And then Peredur went back, and left the horse and arms with the attendant, as before, and he went on by foot to the palace. Then Peredur went by the name of Dumb Youth, and behold, Angharad Lau Iroke met him. I declare to heaven, chieftain, said she, woeful is it that thou canst not speak, for couldst thou speak, I would love thee the best of all men, and by my faith, although thou canst not, I do love thee above all. Heaven reward thee, my sister, said Peredur. By my faith, I also do love thee. Thereupon it was known that he was Peredur, and then he held fellowship with Gwalchmai and Owain, the son of Urien, and all the household, and he remained in Arthur's court. Arthur was in Caerleon upon Usk, and he went to hunt, and Peredur went with him. And Peredur let loose his dog upon a hart, and the dog ended the hart in a desert place. And a short space from him he saw signs of a dwelling, and towards that dwelling he went, and he beheld a hall, and at the door of the hall he found bald, swarthy youths playing at chess. And when he entered, he beheld 3 maidens sitting upon a bench, and they were all clothed alike, as became persons of high rank. And he came and sat by them on a bench, and one of the maidens looked steadfastly upon Peredur, and wept. Peredur asked her wherefore she was weeping. Through grief that I should see so fair a youth as thou art slain. Who would slay me? Inquired Peredur. If thou art so daring as to remain here tonight, I will tell thee. How great soever my danger may be from remaining here, I will listen unto thee, he replied. This palace is owned by him who is my father, said the maiden, and he slays everyone who comes hither without his leave. What sort of man is thy father that he is able to slay everyone thus? A man who does violence and wrong unto his neighbours, and who renders justice unto none. And hereupon he saw the youths arise and clear the chessmen from the board, and he heard a great tumult. And after the tumult there came a huge, black, one-eyed man, and the maidens arose to meet him. And they disarrayed him, and he went and sat down. And after he had rested and pondered a while, he looked at Peredur, and asked who the knight was. Lord, said one of the maidens, he is the fairest, gentlest youth that ever thou didst see, and for the sake of heaven and of thy own dignity, have patience with him. For thy sake I will have patience, and I will grant him his life this night. Then Peredur came forward to the fire, and partook of food and liquor, and entered into discourse with the ladies. And being elated with the liquor, he said to the black man, It is a marvel to me, so mighty as thou sayest thou art, who could have put out thine eye? It is one of my habits, said the black man, that whosoever puts to me the question of which thou hast asked shall not escape with his life, either as a free gift or for a price. Lord, said the maiden, whatsoever he may say to thee in jest, and through the excitement of liquor, make good on which thou saidst and didst promise me just now. I will do so, gladly, for thy sake, said he. Willingly will I grant him his life this night. And thus that night they remained. The next day the black man got up and put on his armour, and said to Peredur, Arise, man, and suffer the end. Peredur said unto him, Do one of two things, sir. If thou wilt fight with me, either throw off thy own armour, or give arms to me that I may encounter thee. Ha, man, said he, couldst thou fight if thou hadst arms? Take then what arms thou dost choose. And thereupon the maiden came to Peredur with such arms as pleased him, and he fought with the man, and forced him to crave his mercy. Thou shalt have mercy, provided thou tell me who thou art, and who put out thine eye. Lord, I will tell thee, I lost it in fighting with the black serpent of the Khan. And there is a mound, which is called the Mound of Mourning, and on the mound there is a Khan, and in the Khan there is a serpent, and on the tail of the serpent there is a stone, and the virtues of the stone are such, that whosoever should hold it in one hand, in the other he will have as much gold as he may desire. And in fighting with this serpent was it that I lost my eye, and I am called the Black Oppressor. And for this reason I am the Black Oppressor, because no single man around me whom I have not oppressed, and justice I have done unto none. Tell me, said Peredur, how far is it hence? The same day thou hast settest forth, thou wilt come to the palace of the sons of the kings of tortures. And wherefore they are called thus? The Athanc of the lake slays them once every day, and thou goest hence, thou wilt come to the court of the Countess of the Achievements. What achievements are there? asked Peredur. 300 men that are in her household, and unto every stranger that comes to the court, the achievements of her household are related, and this is the manner of it. The 300 men of the household sit next to the lady, and that not through disrespect unto the guests, but they may relate the achievements of the household. And the day thou goest thence, thou wilt reach the Mount of Mourning, and around that mound there are the owners of the 300 tents guarding the serpent. Since thou hast, indeed, been an oppressor so long, said Peredur, I will cause that thou continue so no longer. And so he slew him. And then the maiden spoke, and began to converse with him. If thou wast poor when thou camest here, henceforth thou wilt be rich, and through the treasure of the man whom thou hast slain. Thou seest the many lovely maidens that are here in this court. Thou shalt have her whom thou best likest for the lady of thy love. Lady, I came not hither from my country to woo, but match yourselves as it liketh you with the comely youths I see here, and none of your goods do I desire, for I need them not. Then Peredur rode forward, and he came to the palace of the sons of the kings of the tortures. And he entered the palace. He saw none but the women, and they rose up and were joyful at his coming. As they began to discourse with him, he beheld a charger arrive, with a saddle upon it, and a corpse in the saddle. And one of the women arose, and took the corpse from the saddle, and anointed it in a vessel of warm water, which was below the door, and placed precious balsam upon it. And the man rose up alive, and came to the place where Peredur was, and greeted him, and was joyful to see him. And 2 other men came in upon their saddles, and the maiden treated these 2 in the same manner as she had done the first. And then Peredur asked the chieftain wherefore it was thus, and they told him that there was an Addanc in the cave which slew them once every day, and thus they remained that night. And the next morning the youths arose to sally forth, and Peredur besought them, for the sake of the ladies of their love, to permit him to go with them. But they refused him, saying, If thou shouldst be slain there, thou hast none to bring thee back to life again. And they rode forward, and Peredur followed after them, and after they had disappeared out of his sight, he came to a mound, whereon sat the fairest lady he had ever beheld. I know thy quest, said she. Thou art going to encounter the Addanc, and he will slay thee, and that not by courage, but by craft. He has a cave, and at the entrance of the cave there is a stone pillar, and he sees every one that enters, and none see him. From behind the pillar he slays every one with a poisonous dart. If thou wouldst pledge me thy faith, to love me above all women, I would give thee a stone by which thou shouldst see him, and thou goest in, and he should not see thee. I will, by my troth, said Peredur, for when I first beheld thee, I loved thee. Where shall I seek thee? When thou seekest me, seek towards India. And the maiden vanished after placing the stone in Peredur's hand. And he came towards a valley through which ran a river, and the borders of the valley were wooded, and on each side of the river were level meadows. And on one side of the river he saw a flock of white sheep, and on the other a flock of black sheep. And whenever one of the white sheep bleated, one of the black sheep would cross over and become white. And when one of the black sheep bleated, one of the white sheep would cross over and become black. And he saw a tall tree by the side of the river, one half of which was in flames from the root to the top, and the other half was green and in full leaf. And nigh thereto he saw a youth sitting upon a mound, and 2 greyhounds, white-breasted and spotted, in leashes, lying by his side. And certain was he that he had never seen a youth of so royal a bearing as he. And in the wood opposite he heard hounds raising a herd of deer, and Peredur saluted the youth, and the youth greeted him in return. And there were 3 roads leading from the mound. 2 of them were wide roads, and the third was more narrow. And Peredur inquired where the 3 roads went. One of them goes to my palace, said the youth, and one of the 2 things I counsel thee to do. Either to proceed to my palace, which is before thee, and thou wilt find my wife, or else remain here to see the hounds chasing the roused deer from the wood to the plain, and thou shalt see the best greyhounds thou ever didst behold, and the boldest of the chase. End them by the water beside us, and when it is time to go to meat, my page will come with my horse to meet me, and thou shalt rest in my palace tonight. Heaven reward thee, but I cannot tarry, for onward I must go, Peredur replied. The other road leads to the town, which is near here, and wherein food and liquor may be bought, and the road which is narrower than the others goes towards the cave of the Addanc. With thy permission, young man, I will go that way, Peredur replied. And Peredur went towards the cave, and he took the stone in his left hand, and his lance in his right. And as he went in, he perceived the Addanc, and he pierced him through with his lance, and cut off his head. And as he came from the cave, behold, the 3 companions were at the entrance, and they saluted Peredur, and told him that there was a prediction that he should slay the monster. And Peredur gave the head to the young men, and offered him in marriage whichever of the 3 sisters he might choose, and have their kingdom with her. I came not hither to woo, said Peredur, but if peradventure I took a wife, I should prefer your sister to all the others. Then Peredur rode forward, and heard a noise behind him, and he looked back and saw a man upon a red horse, with red armour upon him, and the man rode up by his side, saluted him, and wished him the favour of heaven and man. And Peredur greeted the youth kindly. Lord, I come to make a request unto thee. What wouldst thou? That thou shouldst take me as thine attendant. Who then should I take as my attendant, if I did so? I will not conceal from thee what kind of kindred I am. Etlim Gledith Koch am I called, the Earl from the East Country. I marvel that thou shouldst offer to become attendant to a man whose possessions are no greater than thine own, for I have but an earldom like thyself. But since thou desirest to be my attendant, I will take thee joyfully. And they went forward to the court of the countess, and all they of the court were glad at their coming. And they were told it was not through disrespect that they were placed below the household, but that such was the usage of the court, and whoever should overthrow the 300 men of her household would sit next to the countess, and she would love them above all men. And Peredur, having overthrown the 300 men of her household, sat down beside her, and the countess said, I thank heaven that I have a youth so fair and so valiant as thou, since I have not obtained the man best of whom I love. And who is he best thou lovest? By my faith, Etlim Glevith Hoch is the man whom I love best, and I have never seen him. Of a truth, Etlim is my companion, and behold, here he is, and for his sake did I come to joust with thy household, and he could have done so better than I, had it pleased him, and I do give thee unto him. Heaven reward thee, fair youth, and I will take the man whom I love above all others. And the countess became Etlim's bride from that moment. And the next day Peredur set forth towards the mount of mourning. By thy hand, Lord, but I will go with thee, said Etlim. And they went forwards until they came to the sight of the mounds and the tents. Go unto yonder men, said Peredur to Etlim, and desire them to come and do me homage. So Etlim went unto them, and said to them thus, Come and do homage to my lord. Who is thy lord? said they. Peredur with a long lance is my lord, said Etlim. Where permitted to slay a messenger, thou shouldest not go back to thy lord alive, for making unto kings and earls and barons so arrogant a demand as to go and do him homage. Peredur desired him to go back to them, and give them their choice. Either they do homage to him, or they do battle with him. And they chose rather to do battle. And that day Peredur overthrew the owners of 100 tents, and the next day he overthrew the owners of 100 more, and the third day the remaining 100 took counsel to do homage to Peredur. And Peredur inquired of them wherefore they were there, and they told him they were guarding the serpent until he should end, for then we should fight with the stone amongst ourselves, and whoever shall be conqueror among us would have that stone. Await here, said Peredur, and I will go to encounter the serpent. Not so, lord, said they, we will go together and encounter the serpent. Verily, said Peredur, that I will not permit it, for if the serpent be slain, I shall derive no more fame from there any one of you. Then he went to the place where the serpent was, and slew it, and came back to them, and said, Reckon up what thou hast spent since thou hast been here, and I will repay you all to the full. And he paid to each what was said in his claim, and then required of them only that they should acknowledge themselves as his vassals. Then he said to Etlim, Go back unto her whom thou lovest best, and I will go forwards, and I will reward thee for having been my attendant. And he gave Etlim the stone. Heaven repay thee and prosper thee, said Etlim. And Peredur rode thence, and he came to the fairest valley he had ever seen, through which ran a river, and there he beheld many tents of various colours, and he marvelled still more at the number of watermills and windmills that he saw. And there rode up with him a tall auburn-haired man in a workman's garb, and Peredur inquired of him who he was. I am the chief miller, said he, of all the mills yonder. Wilt thou give me lodging? said Peredur. I will gladly, he answered. And Peredur came to the miller's house, and the miller had a fair and pleasant dwelling. And Peredur asked money as a loan from the miller, that he might buy meat and liquor for himself and for the household, and he promised he would pay him again ere he went thence. And then he inquired of the miller wherefore such a multitude were assembled. Said the miller to Peredur, One thing is certain, either thou art a man from afar, or thou art beside thyself. The Empress of Christenople the Great is here, and she will have no one but the man who is most valiant, for riches does she not require, and it is impossible to bring food for so many thousands as are here, therefore all these mills are constructed, and that night they took their rest. And the next day Peredur arose, and he equipped himself and his horses for the tournament. Among the other tents he beheld one that was the fairest he had ever seen, and he saw a beauteous maiden leaning her head out of a window of the tent, and he had never seen a maiden more lovely than she, and upon her was a garment of satin. He gazed fixedly at the maiden, and began to love her greatly, and as he remained there, gazing upon the maiden from morning until midday, and from midday until the evening, and then the tournament was ended, and he went to his lodging and drew off his armour. Then he asked money of the miller as a loan, and the miller's wife was wroth with Peredur. Nevertheless, the miller lent him the money, and the next day he did in a like manner as he had done the day before, and at night he came to his lodging, took money as a loan from the miller, and the third day he was in the same place gazing upon the maiden, and he felt a hard blow between the neck and the shoulder from the edge of an axe. And when he looked behind him, he saw it was the miller. The miller said to him, "Do one of two things. Either turn thy head from hence, or go to the tournament." And Peredur smiled on the miller, and went to the tournament. And all that encountered them that day he overthrew, and as many as he vanquished he sent a gift to the empress, and their horses and arms he sent as a gift to the wife of the miller, in payment of the borrowed money. Peredur attended the tournament until all were overthrown, and he sent all the men to the prison of the empress, and the horses and arms to the wife of the miller in repayment for the borrowed money. And the empress sent to the knight of the mill to ask him to come and visit her, and Peredur went, not for the first or for the second message, but the third time she sent 100 knights to bring him against his will, and they went to him and told him of their mission from the empress. And Peredur fought well with them, and caused them to be bound like stags, and thrown into the mill dike. And the empress sought the advice of a wise man who was in her council, and he said to her, "With thy permission I will go to him myself." So he came to Peredur and saluted him, and besought him, for the sake of the lady of his love, to come and visit the empress. And they went together with the miller. And Peredur went and sat down in the outer chamber of the tent, and she came and placed herself by his side. And there was but little discourse between them. And Peredur took his leave, and then went to his lodging. The next day he came to visit her, and when he came into the tent, there was no one chamber less decorated than the others, and he knew not where he would sit. So Peredur went and sat beside the empress, and discoursed with her courteously. And while they were there, he beheld a black man enter with a goblet full of wine in his hand, and he dropped upon his knee before the empress, and besought her to give it to no one who would not fight with him for it. And she looked upon Peredur. "Lady," said he, "bestow upon me the goblet." And Peredur drank the wine, and gave the goblet to the miller's wife. And while they were thus, behold, there entered a black man of larger stature than the other, with a wild beast's claw in his hand, wrought into the form of a goblet, and filled with wine, which he presented to the empress, and besought her to give it to no one but the man who would fight with him. "Lady," said Peredur, "bestow it upon me." She gave it to him, and Peredur drank the wine, and sent the goblet to the wife of the miller. And while they were thus, behold, a rough-looking, crisp-haired man, taller than either of the others, came in with a bowl in his hand full of wine, and he bent upon his knee and gave it to the hands of the empress, and besought her to give it to none but he who would fight with him for it. She gave it to Peredur, and he sent it to the miller's wife. And that night Peredur returned to his lodging, and the next day he accoutred himself and his horse, and went to the meadow and slew the 3 men. Then Peredur proceeded to the tent, and the empress said to him, "Goodly Peredur, remember the faith thou didst pledge me when I gave thee the stone, and thou didst end the Athach." "Lady," answered he, "thou sayest truth, I do remember it." And Peredur was entertained by the empress 14 years, as the story relates. Arthur was at Caerlleon upon Usk, his principal palace, and in the centre of the floor of the hall were 4 men sitting on a carpet of velvet: Owain, the son of Urien, Gwalchmai, the son of Gwyar, and Howell, the son of Emer Lladau, and Peredur of the Long Lance. And thereupon they saw a black curly-headed maiden enter, riding upon a yellow mule, with jagged thongs in her hand, to urge it on, and having a rough and hideous aspect. Darker were her face and her 2 hands than the darkest iron covered in pitch, and her hue was not more frightful than her form. High cheeks had she, and a face lengthening downwards, with a short nose and distended nostrils. With one eye was a piercing mottled grey, and the other was a black as jet, sunk deep into her head. Her teeth were long and yellow, more yellow than they were the flower of the broom, and her stomach rose from her breastbone higher than her chin, and her back was in the shape of a crook, and her legs were large and bony, and her figure was very thin and spare, except her feet and legs, which were of huge size. And she greeted Arthur and all his household, except Peredur. To Peredur she spoke harsh and angry words. Peredur, I greet thee not, seeing that thou dost not merit it. Blind was fate in giving thee fame and favour, and whence thou wast in the court of the lame king, thou didst see the youth bearing the streaming spear, from the points of which were drops of blood flowing in streams, even to the hand of the youth, and many wonders likewise. Thou didst not inquire their meaning nor their cause. Hadst thou done so, the king would have been restored to health, and his dominions to peace. Whereas from henceforth he will have to endure battles and conflicts, and his knights will perish, and their wives will be widowed, and the maidens will be left portionless, and all this is because of thee. Then she said to Arthur, May it please thee, Lord, my dwelling is far hence, in the stately castle of which thou hast heard, and therein 566 knights of the order of chivalry, and the lady whom best he loves with each, and whoever would acquire fame in arms and encounters and conflicts, he will gain it there, if he deserves it. And whoso would reach the summit of fame and honour, I know where he may find it. There is a castle on a lofty mountain, and there is a maiden therein, and she is detained a prisoner there, and whoever shall set her free will attain the summit of fame in the world. And thereupon she rode away. Said Gwalchmai, By my faith, I will not rest tranquilly until I have proved if I can release the maiden. And many of Arthur's household joined themselves with him. Then likewise, said Peredur, By my faith, I will not rest tranquilly until I know the story and meaning of the lance whereof the black maiden spoke. And while they were equipping themselves, behold, a knight came to the gate, and he had the size and strength of a warrior, and was equipped with arms and habiliments. And he went forward and saluted Arthur and all his household, except Gwalchmai. And the knight had upon his shoulder a shield ingrained with gold, and a fess of azure blue upon it, and his whole armour was of the same hue. And he said to Gwalchmai, Thou didst slay my lord, and by thy treachery and deceit, and that will I prove upon thee. Then Gwalchmai rose up. Behold, said he, here is my gage against thee, to maintain either in this place or wherever else thou wilt, that I am not a traitor or a deceiver. Before the king whom I obey, will that I encounter with thee take place, said the knight. Willingly, said Gwalchmai, go forward, and I will follow thee. So the knight went forth, and Gwalchmai accoutred himself, and there was offered unto him abundance of armour, but he would take none but his own. And when Gwalchmai and Peredur were equipped, they set forth to follow him, by reason of their fellowship, and of the great friendship that was between them. And they did not go after him in company together, but each went his own way. At the dawn of day, Gwalchmai came to a valley, and in the valley he saw a fortress, and within the fortress a vast palace, with lofty towers around it. And he beheld a knight coming out to hunt from the other side, mounted on a spirited, black snorting palfrey, and advanced at a prancing pace, proudly stepping and nimbly bounding, sure of foot. And this was the man to whom the palace belonged. And Gwalchmai saluted him. Heaven prosper thee, chieftain, said he, and whence comest thou? I come, answered he, from the court of Arthur. And art thou Arthur's vassal? Yes, by my faith, said Gwalchmai. I will give thee good counsel, said the knight. I see that thou art tired and weary. Go unto my palace, if it may please thee, and tarry there to-night. Willingly, lord, said he, and heaven will thank thee. Take this ring as a token to the porter, and go forward to yonder tower, and therein thou wilt find my sister. And Gwalchmai went to the gate, and shewed the ring, and proceeded to the tower. And on entering, he beheld a large blazing fire, burning without smoke, and with a bright and lofty flame, and a beauteous and stately maiden was sitting on a chair by the fire. And the maiden was glad at his coming, and welcomed him, and advanced to meet him. And he went and sat beside the maiden, and they took their repast. And when their repast was over, they discoursed pleasantly together. And while they were there, thus behold, there entered a venerable, hoary-headed man. Ah, base girl, said he, if thou didst think it was right for thee to entertain and to sit by yonder man, thou wouldst not do so. And he withdrew his head and went forth. Ha, chieftain, said the maiden, if thou wilt do as I counsel thee, thou wilt shut the door, lest the man should have a plot against thee. Upon that Gwalchmai rose, and when he came near unto the door, the man, with 60 others, fully armed, were ascending the tower. And Gwalchmai defended the door with a chessboard, that none might enter until the man should return from the chase. And thereupon, behold, the earl arrived. What is all this? Asked he. It is a sad thing, said the hoary-headed man. The young girl yonder has been sitting and eating with him who slew your father. He is Gwalchmai, the son of Gwyar. Hold thy peace, then, said the earl. I will go in. And the earl was joyful concerning Gwalchmai. Ha, chieftain, said he, it was wrong of thee to come to my court when thou knewest that thou didst slay my father, and though we cannot avenge him, heaven will avenge him upon thee. My soul, said Gwalchmai, thus it is. I came not here either to acknowledge or to deny having slain thy father, but I am on message from Arthur, and therefore I do crave the space of a year until I shall return from my embassy, and then, upon my faith, I will come back to this palace and do one of two things, either acknowledge it or deny it. And the time was granted to him willingly. He remained there that night, and the next morning he rode forth, and the story relates nothing further of Gwalchmai respecting this adventure. And Peredur rode forward, and he wandered over the whole island, seeking tidings of the Black Maiden, and he could meet with none. And then he came to an unknown land in the centre of a valley, watered by a river. And as he traversed the valley, he beheld a horseman coming toward him, and wearing the garments of a priest. He besought his blessing. Wretched man, said he, thou meritest no blessing, and thou wouldst not be profited by one, seeing that thou art clad in armour on such a day as this. And what day is that today? Said Peredur. Today is Good Friday, said he. Chide me not that I knew not this, seeing that it is a year today since I journeyed forth from my country. Then he dismounted, and led his horse in his hand, and he had not proceeded far along the high road before he came to a crossroad, and at the crossroad traversed a wood. And on the other side of the wood he saw an unfortified castle, which appeared to be inhabited. And at the gate of the castle there met him the priest whom he had seen before, and he asked his blessing. The blessings of heaven be unto thee, said he. It is more fitting to travel in thy present guise than as thou wast erewhile, and this night shall tarry with me. So he remained there that night. The next day Peredur sought to go forth. Today may no one journey. Thou shalt remain with me today and tomorrow and the day following, and I will direct thee as best I may to the place which thou art seeking. And on the 4th day Peredur sought to go forth, and he entreated the priest to tell him how he should find the Castle of Wonders. What I know thereof I will tell thee, he replied. Go over yonder mountain, and on the other side of the mountain thou wilt come to a river, and in the valley wherein the river runs is the king's palace, wherein the king sojourned during Easter. And if thou mayest leave tidings anywhere of the Castle of Wonders, thou wilt have them there. And Peredur rode forward, and he came to the valley in which was the river, and there met him a number of men going to hunt, and in the midst of them was a man of exalted rank. And Peredur saluted him. Choose, chieftain, said the man, whether thou wilt go with me to the chase, or wilt proceed to my palace, and I will dispatch one of my household to commend thee to my daughter, who is there, and who will entertain thee with food and liquor until I return from hunting. And whatever may be thine errand, such as I can obtain for thee, thou shalt gladly have. And the king sent a little yellow page with him as an attendant. And when they had come to the palace, the lady had arisen and was about to wash before meat. Peredur went forward, and she saluted him joyfully, and placed him by her side, and they took their repast. And whatsoever Peredur said unto her, she laughed loudly, so that all the palace could hear. Then spoke the yellow page to the lady. By my faith, said he, this youth is already thy husband, or if he be not, thy mind and thoughts are with him. And the little yellow page went unto the king, and told him that it seemed to him that the youth whom he had met was his daughter's husband, or if he were not so already, he would shortly become so, unless he were cautious. What is thy counsel in the matter, youth? Said the king. My counsel, he replied, is that thou set strong men upon him to seize him until thou hast ascertained the truth respecting this. So he set strong men upon Peredur, who seized him and cast him into prison. And the maiden went before her father and asked him, Wherefore hast thou caused the youth from Arthur's court to be imprisoned? In truth, he answered, he shall not be free tonight, nor tomorrow, nor the day following, and he shall not come from where he is. She replied not to what the king said, but instead went to the youth. Is it unpleasant to thee to be here? Said she. I should not care if I were not. He replied, Thy couch and thy treatment shall be in no wise inferior to that of the king himself, and thou shalt have the best entertainment that the palace affords. And if it were more pleasing to thee that my couch should be here, and I might discourse with thee, I should do so cheerfully. This can I not refuse, said Peredur, and he remained in prison that night, and the maiden provided all she had promised him. And the next day Peredur heard a tumult in the town. Tell me, fair maiden, what is that tumult? Said Peredur. All the king's hosts and his forces have come to the town today. And what seek they there? He inquired. There is an earl near this place who possesses 2 earldoms and is powerful as a king, and an engagement will take place between them today. I beseech thee, said Peredur, to cause a horse and arms to be brought, that I may view the encounter, and I promise to come back to my prison again. Gladly, said she, I will provide thee with horse and arms. So she gave him a horse and arms, and a bright scarlet robe of honour over his armour, and a yellow shield upon his shoulder. And he went to the combat, and as many of the earl's men as he encountered that day, he overthrew them. And then he returned to the prison. And the maiden asked tidings of Peredur, and he answered her not a word. And then she went and asked tidings of her father, and inquired who had acquitted himself best of the household. He said that he knew not, but it was a man with a scarlet robe of honour over his armour, and a yellow shield upon his shoulder. Then she smiled, and returned to where Peredur was, and did him great honour that night. And for 3 days did Peredur slay the earl's men, and before anyone could know who he was, he would return to his prison. And on the 4th day Peredur slew the earl himself, and the maiden went unto her father, and inquired of him the news. I have good news for thee, said the king. The earl is slain, and I am the owner of his 2 earldoms. Knowest thou, lord, who slew him? I do not know, said the king. It was the knight of the scarlet robe of honour and the yellow shield. Lord, said she, I know who that is. By heaven, he exclaimed, who is he? Lord, she replied, he is the knight whom thou hast imprisoned. Then he went unto Peredur and saluted him, and told him he would reward the service he had done him in any way he might desire. And when they went to meat, Peredur was placed beside the king, and the maiden on the other side of Peredur. I will give thee, said the king, my daughter in marriage, and half my kingdom with her, and the 2 earldoms as a gift. Heaven reward thee, lord, said Peredur, but I came not here to woo. What seekest thou then, chieftain? I am seeking tidings of a castle of wonders. Thy enterprise is greater, chieftain, than thou wilt wish to pursue, said the maiden. Nevertheless, tidings shalt thou have of the castle, and thou shalt have a guide through my father's dominions, and a sufficiency of provisions for thy journey, for thou art, O chieftain, a man whom I best love. Then she said to him, Go over yonder mountain, and thou wilt find a lake, and in the middle of the lake there is the castle, and that is the castle that is called the Castle of Wonders, and we know not wonders are therein, but thus it is called. And Peredur proceeded toward the castle, and the gate of the castle was open, and when he came to the hall, the door was open, and he entered. And he beheld a chessboard in the hall, and the chessmen were playing against each other, by themselves. And on the side that he favoured, well, it lost the game, And thereupon the others set up a shout as though they had been living men. And Peredur was wroth, and took the chessmen in his lap, and cast the chessboard into the lake. And when he had done thus, behold, the black maiden came in, and she said to him, The welcome of heaven be not unto thee, thou hadst rather do evil than good. What complaint hast thou against me, maiden? said Peredur, that thou hast occasioned unto the empress the loss of her chessboard, which she would not have lost for all her empire? And the way in thou mayest recover the chessboard is to repair the castle of Ysbydinongil, where there is a black man who lays waste to the dominions of the empress, and if thou canst slay him, thou wilt recover the chessboard. But if thou goest there, thou wilt not return alive. Wilt thou direct me thither? said Peredur. I will show thee the way, she replied. And so he went to the castle of Ysbydinogil, and he fought with the black man there. And the black man besought mercy of Peredur. Mercy will I grant thee, said he, on condition that thou cause the chessboard to be restored to the place where it was when I entered the hall. And the maiden came to him, and said, The malediction of heaven attend thee for thy work, since thou hast left that monster alive, who lays waste to the possessions of the empress. I granted him his life, said Peredur, that he might cause the chessboard to be restored. The chessboard was not in the place where thou didst find it. Go back, therefore, and slay him, answered she. So Peredur went back and slew the black man, and when he returned to the palace he found the black maiden there. Ah, maiden, said Peredur, where is the empress? I declare to heaven that thou wilt not see her now, unless thou dost slay the monster that is in yonder forest. What monster is there? It is a stag that is swift as the swiftest bird, and he has one horn on his forehead, as long as the shaft of a spear, and as sharp as whatever is sharpest. And he destroys the branches of the best trees of the forest, and he kills every animal that he meets therein, and those that he does not slay perish of hunger. And what is worse, that he comes every night and drinks up the fish pond, and leave the fishes exposed, so that for the most part they end before the water returns again. Maiden, said Peredur, wilt thou come and show me this animal? Not so, said the maiden, for he has not permitted any mortal to enter the forest for above a 12-month. Behold, here is a little dog belonging to the empress, which will rouse the stag, and will chase him toward thee, and the stag will attack thee. And then the little dog went as a guide to Peredur, and roused the stag, and brought him towards the place where Peredur was. And the stag attacked Peredur, and he let him pass by him, and as he did so he smote off his head with the sword. And while he was looking at the head of the stag, he saw a lady on horseback coming toward him. And she took the little dog in the lappet of her cap, and in the head and the body of the stag lay before her, and around the stag's neck was a golden collar. Ha, chieftain, said she, uncourteously hast thou acted in slaying the fairest jewel that was in my dominions. I was entreated to do so, and is there any way by which I can obtain thy friendship? There is, she replied. Go thou forward into yonder mountain, and thou wilt find a grove, and in the grove there is a cromlech. Do thou there challenge a man 3 times to fight, and thou shalt have my friendship. So Peredur proceeded onward, and came on the side of the grove, and challenged any man to fight. And a tall man arose from beneath the cromlech, mounted upon a bony horse, and both he and his horse were clad in huge rusty armour. And they fought, and as often as Peredur cast the man back to the earth, he would jump again into his saddle. And Peredur dismounted and drew his sword, and thereupon the tall man disappeared with Peredur's horse and his own, so that he could not gain sight of him a second time. And Peredur went along the mountain, and on the other side of the mountain he beheld a castle in the valley, wherein was a river. He went to the castle, and as he entered it, he saw a hall, and the door of the hall was open, and he went in, and there he saw a lame, grey-headed man sitting on one side of the hall, with Gwalchmai beside him. And Peredur beheld the horse of which the black man had taken in the same stall with that of Gwalchmai, and they were glad concerning Peredur. He went and seated himself on the other side of the hoary-headed man. Then behold, a yellow-haired youth came, and bent upon the knee before Peredur, and besought his friendship. Lord, said the youth, it was I that came in the form of the black maid into Arthur's court? And when didst thou throw the chessboard? And when didst slay the black man of Ysbydinongyl? And when thou didst slay the stag? And when thou didst go to fight the tall man of the cromlech? And I came with the bloody head on the salver, and with the lance that streamed with blood from the point in the hand, all along the shaft, and the head was thy cousin's. He was killed by the sorceresses of Gloucester, who also lamed thine uncle. I am thy cousin, and there is a prediction that thou art to avenge these things. Then Peredur and Gwalchmai took counsel, and sent to Arthur and his household to beseech them to come against the sorceresses. And they began to fight with them, and one of the sorceresses slew one of Arthur's men before Peredur's face. And Peredur bade her forbear. And the sorceress slew a man before Peredur's face a second time, and a second time he forbade her. And the third time the sorceress slew a man before the face of Peredur, and then Peredur drew his sword and smote the sorceress on the helmet, and all her head armor was split into two parts. And she set up a cry and desired the other sorceresses to flee, and told them that this was Peredur, the man who had learnt chivalry with them, and by whom they were destined to be slain. Then Arthur and his household fell upon the sorceresses, and slew the sorceresses of Gloucester every one, and thus it is relating concerning to the Castle of Wonders.
The story has ended, but your dreams are just beginning. Let them carry you gently through stars and silence and soft wonder. Thank you for letting me read to you. I'll be here again whenever you need a quiet voice and a gentle tale. Sleep well, sleep deep, and good night, dear dreamer. Breuddwydion melys, dear dreamer, sweet